Okay, what if we just did the Q&A from the floor? What if we just did that? What if we just called Taylor up? What if we just called Taylor up? The amount of times I say that in a day is actually concerning. Just in case the general public was wondering how many times I say that phrase in a day. That is how Believe it or not, I actually prepared for this video. Thank you very much. Hi everybody, my name is Katie. If you've never been to this channel or seen my face before, I am in school for television, getting my master's in London. Used to live in Edinburgh, took a gap year, studied abroad as well. Now I'm here doing more education for some reason. Today I asked my subscribers over on Instagram and on this channel to ask me some questions. So the first question is, what's your favorite thing to do in London? Exchange student in the UK. So I guess it's from an exchange student in the UK. I wrote a list. This is what I mean by I prepared. Going to the parks, because being in the city, I think, can be a lot sometimes. So honestly, favorite thing to do in London, leaving London. I went to Cambridge the other day and I forgot how much I really love not being in London. There is something like so nice about the rest of England that you just like you lose parts of it when you move here. Yeah, so my favorite things, Richmond Park is really, really beautiful. Hyde Park, going to any of the museums. I just went to the Tate the other day. That was really great. The V&A is a great museum to go to. It's like the big one. Seeing a show, it's London Theatre Week right now, which it only happens like 2 times a year, but be aware of this because you can get like great ticket deals, also like day of tickets, or this app called Tix. Going to a great restaurant or market. My favorite market that I've been to so far, there's like Camden Market, there's it's called Spitalfields, I haven't been there yet, Borough Market, there's a bunch of, I think there's a one in Greenwich Market, sort of like these big open food markets, and the food is usually like so good. But yeah, seeing a unique exhibit or just like walking around downtown, seeing the architecture. If you've never been to London before, like you have to go see the big stuff. You have to go see Big Ben and Westminster Abbey. And how can we spend a gap year without traveling? I have talked about this ad nauseum on my channel about taking a gap year. One of the best things that I ever did. And I took it during the pandemic, so it didn't look like everybody else's gap year, where I did not get to travel because I physically just couldn't because we were in a global pandemic. I really think about my gap year as such a formative time in my life. When you think about the amount of money that college costs the average American these days, I think that a gap year is honestly one of the smartest financial decisions that you can possibly make, because choosing to spend that much money when you're 17, 18 years old, I think is irresponsible. And yeah, you have your parents, you know, sort of guiding you towards these things, but one of the biggest things that you can do on a gap year is save money, take a job, figure it out. Like taking a pause, I think is a perfectly valid way to spend a year. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's kind of crazy that we don't push people to do this more with the amount that college is costing these days. One thing I always say, start a passion project. I started this YouTube channel when I was on my gap year and it grew to something that ended me up. It like got me a ticket to London. I got into this great program because of something that I started during that time. So that is always my ideas, but I'll link a playlist below where I talk all about different gap year ideas. Who's your favorite flatmate? Definitely not Bronwyn. She's the worst. And if you're watching this, you're the worst. So the next question is, do expenses vary on the location that you're in London? It's like where you live. Yes, definitely. So there are zones in London. I think this is like the biggest thing to understand before you move here. Central London is in zone 1. I'm in zone 2, I think. And then you get out to like zone, I think there's 5 zones maybe. There's 5 zones. The biggest thing that this is going to determine is how much your commute costs every day, which as a student, this matters way more than you think it would. So I just like started taking the tube when I first initially got here, and I was like, oh, it's like, it possibly can't be, you know, that much more than the bus. It was that much more. I was paying about like £7 a day to get to class and back, and now I pay about 3. And if you think about like how much that compounds over like a month, that is probably one of my biggest like hidden expenses living here is how much transportation costs. I do still take the tube from time to time because it is a lot faster than the bus, and if I like really need to get somewhere, then I will take it, but I definitely recommend taking the bus if you're a student and you can, and it's not that much farther away. I think it adds like a half an hour to my journey every morning, which isn't great, but it saves me a lot of money. I'm looking forward to getting a job. But yes, different areas in London do cost more or less depending on where you live. I live with 5 other roommates, so I live in a pretty nice area, but looking around, there are places that you can find sort of all over that are going to be out of your price range, and then within it, I think the further out you go, the less expensive it should get. That does not always happen all the time. Keep an open mind. There are definitely areas in London you can live where it won't be as expensive, but it is expensive to live here. But if you live with a lot of roommates, it's actually still pretty bad. How did you know what you want to major in? This is a really interesting question. So I'm actually gonna tell a story because I think that it illustrates just how much you have no idea what you want in your life when you're a teenager. Maybe give you some sort of direction to look in. But when I was like 15 or 16, I was a sophomore in high school and I did a play, and I was quite good at musical theater back when I was that age. I had a scholarship to high school to do it. A small high school, by the way, like it was whatever. But I did this play at the other school across the street, and I remember I had like a couple people at this, when I did this show, where they were like, you should pursue that, which is a very dangerous thing to tell a 16-year-old. And I was like, I was okay for high school. Like, I was good for high school, but like in terms of like actually going down the route of like professional acting, like I just wasn't, that just like wasn't gonna be for me. Which is also very funny because like if you knew me in high school, I was very, very quiet and shy, and like, but I always sort of had like these bigger roles in the play. So I started looking at like musical theater schools, and I went to visit a school with my parents to look at their program, and we talked to this man who was so frightening. And like, while I was a theater kid, I wasn't like a theater kid. You know what I mean? Like, there is a difference. God bless you, real theater kids. And like, I was a theater kid. Don't worry. I was, but I wasn't. You know what I mean? If you're not a theater kid, this conversation's not gonna make any sense at all. But yeah, he scared me to death, and I got in the car with my parents and I was like, yeah, there's absolutely no way. Like, I'm not doing this. But one of the first colleges that I ever looked at was the College of Charleston, where I ended up going. And they had a program called Arts Management. And I like started sort of like doing my research into it because I really liked that college. And then I realized that it could be something that I could find myself being really passionate about. And basically it's like a business degree, but like for the arts. So I was always really, really passionate about the arts and like being a part of musical theater and singing and being in choir and being around music. And it was just always something, and creative writing too. So like, even when I went to that college and I applied early decision to College of Charleston, which means it's like binding. So once I got in, I was like, this is where I'm going. My senior year, which is so funny that I tell everyone to take a gap year when like there's not much I regret about, like, no, there is stuff I regret. That's not true. But I did have a very clear path of where I was going, but I know that's very rare. But again, I went to college my freshman year and like I started my major and I was still having questions about it. Like, I remember my second semester, I was really questioning whether I should change majors and do something else. And like, my first 2 years at the school itself were just kind of rough, and there weren't many other places I could go to get this like very specialized degree. And that's maybe like where more of my like regret comes in. It's all good now, like that I'm through it, but it was definitely a really bumpy road to figure out like what I wanted to do with my life. Also, throughout this time, I was like, what if I want to go into TV? And I had absolutely no idea what that looked like. Timing is really weird, and you just kind of have to like do the things that you want to do the things that scare you, work really hard in college, but like also try and have fun. And yeah, it's a nightmare. Good luck. That's terrible advice. No, maybe it's fine. Okay. So have you met a lot, this is gonna be a really long video, by the way. Have you met a lot of meh, nice, but don't click people? I think this is a really interesting question because this happened to me. I think there's like been enough time that I can talk about this. This happened to me a lot when I went to Edinburgh, and it specifically happened where I met other Americans, like right at the beginning. We all sort of like got involved in these big groups of other people who were studying abroad, basically from like all different parts of America. There were a lot of times where I'd be sitting in these groups and something just didn't, like, I was always nice to these people and they were always nice enough to me, and there's just like a certain something where like you get together with certain people and it's not nothing on the fault of the other person or you, it's just like you just don't click. And I had that happen a lot, and I just sort of I just sort of collected some of my like people from those bigger groups, and then we sort of went off and like did our own thing. But it is a really hard social position to be in. When I went to the University of Edinburgh, like I wanted to be involved in the university itself. Like I didn't necessarily want to, like I didn't go to study abroad to like hang out with Americans. I don't have like any problems with Americans. Like I have a really great friend here who's American. Like I love Americans, like slay. But I didn't go to study abroad to like hang out with people from the place where I came from. Like I went to sort of expand my mind and my social circles and like try out living in this new country, and I found that a bit frustrating, like the social position that you're in, because like you obviously want people to travel with. If you aren't clicking with those people and you aren't having any fun, that can be quite difficult, and especially if you go by yourself. My biggest advice, especially if you're more quiet or introverted, and you might think this is like completely counterintuitive advice, but I find that if I would go to an event or something completely by myself, it was a lot easier for me to sort of like break into, and this is in Europe, not America, to be clear. I think if I did this in my college in America, like that would go terribly. But people are generally very like they don't want to like leave people out here in a certain sense. Like if they see someone just like sitting alone, like most times people will just like come up to you and like start talking. That has been my general experience. It's sort of like there's just like always this net. So if you go to an event and you don't really know anybody, like you'll meet somebody to talk to. If you just like keep an open mind, you just like start walking up to somebody. Because sometimes if you go with one other person and it's like a big group of people, like you won't really branch out, especially if you're shy. You'll just kind of like stick to each other. So I would just say it's absolutely terrifying, but just go to an event by yourself and you'll see that it's not that bad, and you can end up meeting some cool people by doing that. How different did your year abroad feel compared to your master's? Another story. So my friend Liv came to visit me like a month ago. Like she came and it was like genuinely one of the weirdest experiences of my whole entire life. I feel like unless you have done this, like I think it must be nice to go abroad with somebody else. So like you sort of have like a witness to your time. But like I went home and like nobody like saw me there. Nobody like when I went back to America, like nobody on that continent like knew what I had seen, what I had experienced, like who I was, all the change that happened, like all like the crazy, not like crazy, no, like there were some crazy things. I don't know, just like, it was just like this really weird magical year of my life that just like kind of felt like it didn't happen. And then like I went home and there was just like no witnesses to it. And so when I saw her like a month ago, it was just like, we had so much fun, like reminiscing. I at least had so much fun because I had so much fun that year. Like I had such a good time. It was just like so nice to talk to somebody who was there and could like confirm that this all happened to me. It was just really, really nice. So I don't think that answers your question at all, but I think this time around, I feel like I'm trying to, like there are lots of people around me that like are seeing what's happening, and hopefully this time, like I can bring people into my life and like I'm gonna keep going. Also, my priorities are very different. Like I haven't really been traveling a whole lot. Actually, I haven't traveled at all because I've been doing schoolwork and trying to make friends and like really get out in the city and get connected and involved. And it's a lot. It's a lot different than knowing that you're gonna leave. Like that completely changes the context of how like you interact with the place and like what you end up spending your time doing. I get very tired in London, so like on the weekends, like I could go see, I could go to another town or I could go to something, but like honestly sometimes I'm just like too tired because I'm gonna be here for longer. Like I don't necessarily feel guilty for like just kind of chilling, where I think in Edinburgh is kind of like, oh, I'm never coming back here, like I have to go do all these things. How are you so slay all the time? That's a really good question. I don't know, and it's a curse because like the amount of times that I wake up and I'm just like, how am I so slay? How did I get here? Love you, Claire. Okay, tips on student visa. I should have just posted a video last week talking all about student visas and costs and all sorts of stuff, so I would go check that out. Next one is, I want to get a Master's of Law in London. Can you do a video talking about US/UK differences? So I did want to answer this one because I, at one point, believe it or not, before I was going to do TV, I was looking at applying to law school, and when I was looking into that, you have to look at licensing. I looked at this very briefly, and I clearly am not a lawyer. Thank God. God bless all the lawyers out there. Maybe. Actually, no, do, because my friend Sydney's a lawyer and she's so slay. Slayest law student that has ever lived. But yes, anything that has to do with a license, so like if you are a pharmacist or like an accountant or a lawyer or like a doctor or a nurse. I'm trying to think of like other things, but anything that requires you to have a specific license, most of the time that doesn't transfer to the UK or another country. And I would look into that very, very carefully before you come over here for a law degree, because I do know that law is a 4-year, well, at least at Edinburgh, it's a 3 or 4 year degree that you do as your bachelor's. So I would look into that very carefully. And you also might not be able to practice law in your home country if you get a degree from here. Like you might not be able to go back to your country and practice law, but I don't know how that works, like if you want to stay here and practice law. So I would just say talk to a counselor or somebody who practices law. I would just really vet that decision. What are the biggest things that you've learned about UK culture that you love and hate? Oh, I know. Okay, so this is a good one. So British people have like this way of like not communicating. It's not like passive aggressive like the South, where it's like they're sort of like, oh, like bless your heart, and like that really means like but there was an instance like the first or second month of my degree. Basically, I was in a meeting for school and someone said like, oh, I'm a little bit disappointed during the meeting. And then we left the meeting and like, I was like, oh, I was like all hunky dory. I was like, let's get some lunch. Like we did all right. Like they're just a little bit disappointed. Like we're going to do better. It's going to be great. And then the two British people that like in a part of that conversation like walked out of it like absolutely depressed. Like they were horrified. They were so down. I was like, literally, what's wrong? And they were like, they said they're a little disappointed. Basically, if someone's a little disappointed in you here, it basically means that like you've killed their whole family and like they're so mad at you they could cry. No, I don't think it's really that, but it's pretty bad, I think. I like living in delusion though. Like if someone says to me like I'm a little disappointed, I'm like, I'm not gonna take that to heart. I'm so sorry. Like I have been screamed at before, but I'm like, you know, like it's fine. How to make friends in London besides class activities. So I have made a lot of my friends through class this time around and through my house. I live in a house with a lot of people and I would say that this is something that this time around, I think I've like lived enough lives to be like, this was the right choice for me because I am a little bit introverted. So like I can kind of like Irish goodbye and I like need alone time. But like there's always somebody like around that's nice that I can talk to, which is very helpful. I won't do this forever, but because I'm living in London, brand new city, it's really nice to sort of have like a little bit of a built-in community, and everybody in my house is freshly new to London as well. So if you can pull something like this together, I highly recommend it because it's really scary to move to a new place. And if you live by yourself, especially even if you're like just like a single person, like you're not even like in school or just you move here for a job or something, like I would try to live with other people when you first get here. It just opens up people you can meet in this city so much. And I think it's just a really sort of easy way to integrate into a new place. And then also there are so many Facebook groups and things that you can join. Like I'm in a book club. There are so many society events like through school. So even if you like don't click with your classmates and you're in school here, just go to like a bunch of society events. But yeah, that's really my main advice. But there are so many groups online nowadays. That's how people are meeting, unfortunately. It's like a little weird side effect of our generation because people like aren't super friendly all the time. But a lot of people in the city want to make friends and that is where they are looking. I would give it a try there. Okay, so now we're gonna move over to YouTube and I can't get to all of these today. There were quite a lot of questions, a lot of good ones, but hello, I love your videos. My question, how do you manage dealing with culture shock and adapting to a different lifestyle / cultural norms? I really wish that I had a concrete answer to this, but the answer is I'm always confused. I'm so tired all the time, and I think that partially it's because I'm confused all the time. That confusion is like eating up a lot of other energy that I could be using other places. So I take a lot of naps, I'm really sleepy, and you have to laugh. You have to have a sense of humor about it. If you don't have a sense of humor, like you will cry the whole time, and that's not cool. So you have to laugh or else you would cry. Those are all the questions that I've answered today, but there were a lot of questions. Hopefully I will be able to answer them in future videos. I'm gonna try and do a video dedicated to UAL because I did get a lot of questions about that. So thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great day. Lisa says to have fun.